Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 830, 830, Sunday, July the 7th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, today of course, as I said yesterday, I want to focus most of the video on Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud. I'm going to focus on him because I think he is probably the primary key, at least initially. One of the very first things you have to do is deal with the Mifsud issue. You have to deal with it, and he's a primary, if not the primary factor right now. And so I want to focus a lot on that today. But before I do, I am going to get to just a couple news items before we get into that. And by the way, if you hear like bombs going off around me, that's just the crazies. They still got the fireworks. They must have had plenty left over because they've never really stopped. Actually, the fireworks started about 2 or 3 days before July 4th, and they haven't really stopped. So it's just constant fireworks every night all around me because, quite honestly, hillbillies love fireworks. Yes, they do. Hillbillies love fireworks. And don't forget, you need to get your votes in for Dumbass of the Week in today's video. In the comments section of today's video, put in your comment for your pick for the Dumbass of the Week on the comment section of this video. Now, Sundance over at Conservative Treehouse, in regards to the story we covered yesterday, Catherine Herridge reporting from Fox News that a 11th hour witness, I guess you would say, has decided to go ahead and talk to John Durham, Michael Horowitz, Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz, in the IG report. And I said it was probably maybe Steele or maybe Mifsud or someone like that. But as it turns out, it looks like Sundance is saying it's almost certain that this person would be Kathleen Kavalik. And that would actually make more sense because she actually is still in, I guess, the State Department or the some department of the government. And therefore, they would be able to talk to her, whereas, Steele and Mifsud outside the DOJ or outside the State Department would probably not be someone that would talk to Horowitz. So, anyhow, it looks like that's what Conservative Treehouse are saying. It looks like Kathleen Kavalik is the one who has come forward after previously either not herself making herself not available or someone else not making her available. She didn't want to talk to Horowitz, but now it looks like, according to Sundance, she is likely the one who's decided at the 11th hour to go ahead and talk to Huckleberry Horowitz. And so we'll find out, I'm sure, at some point. We, of course, got her transcript, and it was quite a bit there. Obviously, there was some redactions and some other things there. I certainly had more questions for her, and I'm sure Horowitz will as well. So we'll find out how important she is into the overall investigation. Of course, he's looking specifically at the FISA, and that would definitely come into play with Kavalik, because we know that she got this visit from Christopher Steele prior to the FISA warrant, and she obviously had this conversation. She pointed out the factual inaccuracies in some of the things he said. We know that she forwarded that information over to the FBI. It did make its way eventually to Peter's Been Stroking Us, and of course they went ahead and got the FISA warrant anyway. So I'm sure there's a lot to learn from Kathleen Kavalik, and I'm sure Horowitz is going to press her on those things. Well, my friends, okay, so some more things from that Joe Biden interview with CNN. Some of you, I'm sure, have taken the time to watch it. I know Gene has. I saw his comment. I'm sure some of you did. If you haven't, you might want to do that. So another thing that he brought up, he said that he does have dirt on his opponents, but he says that he could release that information, but he isn't going to go there. Yeah, right. He isn't going to go there. He shows up in Iowa, and he shows up there polling in third place or worse. Believe me, even before that, if he's going to be releasing that stuff. Now, he personally isn't going to go out there on a debate stage or personally make any comments. No, that's not how it's done in politics, especially in the Democrat Party. They will farm that information out to another party, and they will leak that information about his opponents to someone else. No, Biden's not going to do it. They'll have someone else in the campaign, have someone else do it, so that he doesn't have to. But you can bet that the way he's sucking wind and going down the tubes quick, you can bet it won't be long before this negative information will find its way out there. And I suspect that a lot of that research is being done as we speak on Kamala Harris, who, by the way, got her political career started between the sheets with San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. So I'm sure they're working overtime to get the goods on her, to pay her back for the way that she got after crazy, sleepy China Joe in the first debate. You can bet that that's coming. Okay, so another thing he said in that interview, and actually, I got to be honest with you, Joe Biden is already my pick for Dumbass of the Week. I've already decided, unless someone says something really, really stupid in the next 18 hours or so, Uncle Joe is going to be my pick for Dumbass of the Week. But it was going to be based on the comment, which is still hard to top, when he said that the Russia election interference wouldn't have happened on my watch and Obama's watch. Russian election interference wouldn't have happened on his watch or Obama's watch. That is so wrong on so many levels that I don't even want to go into it. I could spend quite some time on just that one statement and how ridiculous and accurate that is. But that's one of those things that almost make you fall out of your chair, the fact that he would say something like that, considering it actually did happen under his and Obama's watch. And of course, the real problem with that is it was really no Russian election interference that mattered, that had an effect. The big interference in the 2016 election was actually the coup plot rolled out by Obama, the Rotten Reverend, and all their friends, along with everyone in the freaking government and foreign adversaries as well. So, anyway, I didn't think he could quite top that, and I'm not so sure this tops it, but it's pretty damn close. So also in that CNN interview, and if you need another reason to make Biden Dumbass of the Week, and if he keeps this up, we'll have to create a separate category just for crazy sleepy China Joe, because this one is probably even more ridiculous. So Biden also says in that CNN interview that AOC, the wild-eyed commie, is brilliant and a very bright woman. She's brilliant and a very bright woman. AOC, brilliant, very bright. I can't believe that he's paid any attention to anything she said. And if he does, if he has been paying attention to things she said, and he determines that based on that she's brilliant and a very bright woman, that he's nuttier than I thought he was. And dumber than I thought he was. Holy smoke. AOC, a brilliant and bright woman. This guy wants to be the next president. Holy smoke. I don't even know how to respond to that. Man, oh man. There you go. If anyone can top those two statements from crazy, sleepy China Joe for Dumbass of the Week, if anybody can top those two, I want to see it. I've seen some pretty good ones out there this week. There's some competition out there, but I don't know that anybody can get anywhere near these two statements. These are slam dunks. I mean, he was already, in my opinion, a slam dunk with the first statement he made. But this here pretty much seals the deal, in my opinion. I'll be interested to see if anyone has a snowball's chance in hell of beating Biden this week for Dumbass of the Week. But you never know. There's still time. Okay. Now I want to talk about Mifsud. Mifsud is probably the key right now to this whole Spygate fiasco and understanding it. If you're Barr or if you're Mr. Durham, you absolutely have to interview Mifsud. You cannot do an investigation of Spygate without interviewing Mifsud. Why? Because he is the person who's alleged to have told Papadopoulos that the Russians have dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. He's the guy. And then based on that, allegedly, Papadopoulos tells Down the Hatch Downer, the Australian diplomat, who then passes it along through various, we're still not sure of the path it followed, but it eventually found its way into the FBI, and it's that the FBI says was the reason that they launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Now, maybe that was the reason they launched Crossfire Hurricane, but it wasn't the reason they started investigating Trump, because the investigation into Trump and people in his campaign began long before that. They were investigating and conducting surveillance on Flynn back in 2014. They were putting agent provocateurs into the world of Papadopoulos early spring of 2016. They were doing many other things. So, but let's just stay focused on Operation Crossfire Hurricane, July the 31st, 2016, the start date, and that being because of Alexander Downer saying that Papadopoulos told him, that someone told him, that the Russians have damaging information on Hillary Clinton. Okay, so this is why it's primary, and then why Mifsud is the key. Because if that did not happen, that creates a lot of problems. If Mifsud did not tell Papadopoulos that, then it means Pops is lying. And if he didn't tell Pops that, then who did? So we have a couple problems here. Pops says that Mifsud told him that the Russians have dirt on Hillary in the form of thousands of emails. Mifsud, once his name first came out, did a very short interview with a reporter overseas, and he denied saying that. And since then, we've really heard nothing from him on that topic, other than through Stephen Rowe. Haven't heard anything from Mifsud personally. Okay, so then we have Downer. Downer says that Papadopoulos told him about this, about the Russians having damaging materials on Hillary Clinton. He didn't say anything about emails. He said damaging information on Hillary Clinton. But Papadopoulos denies that he told Downer that. He says he recalls the conversation pretty well, and he does not recall saying anything to Downer about Russia, Hillary, emails, or anything else. So here we have problems. And if you're Barr or Durham, you have to find out what is true. You absolutely must interview Mifsud, and you must ask him, did you tell Papadopoulos that? And if you did, where did you get that information? He needs to be asked if he was working for a government, an intelligence agency, whether it be Western or Russian or any other, or whether he was working for some private intelligence firm, and that if he got this information, who he got it from, and the whole 9 yards. These are all the series of questions that you need to ask, but you absolutely must nail down what Mifsud did or did not say and do. And the same is true with Alexander Down the Hatch Downer and Pops. They need to interview him again. Now, maybe there's a transcript of the conversations with Mifsud and conversations with Downer. But at this point, we don't know that. But if there is, obviously that would answer their questions. But if they don't have transcripts, they don't have a recording, they don't have that information, then they absolutely must first interview Mifsud and get to the bottom of that. And then, of course, Downer. And Papadopoulos probably once again make absolutely certain, as best as he can recall, did he say anything to Downer? Because if he didn't, then why did Downer say he did? So this is a very, very critical In fact, it's absolutely critical. It is the reason that the FBI says they launched this investigation. And these two characters, Mifsud and Downer, are key, absolutely key. Without them and what the story is regarding them, this FBI investigation cannot happen, or should not have happened. It shouldn't have happened anyway. Now, I believe in this particular case that Papadopoulos is telling the truth. I believe Papadopoulos is telling the truth because he's acting like a man who's telling the truth. He's out there doing every radio and TV show he can do. He's written a book. He has left no gray area whatsoever around his statements about what Mifsud told him and about what he recalls with the conversation with Downer. He's not leaving himself any wiggle room. He's being very, very matter of fact. He's doing what an innocent person would do, out there telling his story and sticking to it. You know, he doesn't waffle around. He doesn't leave gray area. He's very, very matter of fact about these two instances with these two individuals. On the other hand, we have these two guys, Downhatch Downer, who's changed his story now about 6 times. He's not making himself very available, doesn't really want to talk about it, but when he's pressed on it, he lies about it and changes the story. Then we have Mifsud. Immediately after his name comes out, he does a short interview and then he goes underground. He goes underground and he never even contacts, ever again, according to this woman, his girlfriend, who had just given birth to their child. She, to this day, says that since his name came out, has never heard from him. So he's got a girlfriend with his child. Now, she has since, as I understand, divorced him. But he never contacted her again. So obviously, it was pretty important that he go completely underground. If you can't contact your significant other who's just bore your child, then you can't talk to anyone. So he goes underground, and we don't hear anything for a very long time. Then we finally hear, somewhere around May of 2018, that at that time he was living in a property very close to Link campus in Rome that was in fact owned by the partners who own Link University in Rome. And we're told that one of those individuals, who's a part owner of Link University in Rome, is in fact Stephen Rowe, who's this European lawyer. His wife is Russian. She is a clothing designer. She owns a couple of she makes high dollar dresses and purses and things like that. She has a shop in London, very upscale, in a very upscale part of London, very high dollar stuff. Theresa May has been seen wearing some of her dresses. So she clothes the rich and famous, you might say. That's Stephen Rowe's wife. He's and she's of course Russian. He is of course involved in many businesses, and he's a lawyer, and he's got a lot of different things going. He's kind of involved in government issues as well. He's kind of his own diplomat, but more importantly, he's a friend, former business partner, and associate of Joseph Mifsud. And apparently for the past year or two has been like or 2 years or so, has been like a spokesman for Mifsud. You never hear from Mifsud personally, but Rowe does have contact with him. They've appeared together a few times prior to this all coming out. He and Mifsud had appeared together. They had their relationship also there at Link University. And we know all of the people who Mifsud has been associated with. So Mifsud, to me, is acting like a very guilty man. He's acting like a man who has a lot to hide. Because if he had nothing to hide, if he was not the person who told Papadopoulos that the Russians have dirt on Hillary in the form of thousands of emails, then he would have come out and made a statement and said, well, that I didn't tell Papadopoulos that, he's lying, and I'd be willing to sign a sworn statement or appear in front of any body, government body that would choose to call me, or legal body that would choose to call me, and I will swear under oath that that is not true. And then he could have went on with his life, being a diplomat, doing the things he normally had been doing. But unfortunately, that's not what has happened. What happened is his name came out, and they put him underground. And I'm not so sure it was even his choice. And someone is taking care of him. Now, the last that we heard, that he was living out near Link campus was that was reported that was the case back somewhere around spring of 2018, May of 2018 to be precise. But since then, no one's heard a peep out of him again. And Rowe says, though, that he is in a safe place in hiding, but that he also has done some traveling in Europe. So I can only assume at this point that they have given Mifsud a new identity. He's been given a new name. He's been given new papers. He's probably wearing a disguise as he is traveling. And that would be my guess. As far as his girlfriend and his child are concerned, if she recently filed for divorce, and as far as we know, the last word we heard from her was that she still had not heard from him. Of course, had she heard from him in that length of time, I'm pretty sure he would have told her, you can't talk about the fact that you've seen me or whatever. It'll create a lot of problems for you or whatever, so she would probably be lying anyway. So anyway, that's what we know about that. If it turns out to be true that Mifsud, regardless whether he's a Western agent, Russian agent, doesn't really matter. If it turns out that he's the one that said to Papadopoulos, yeah, the Russians have dirt on Hillary in the form of thousands of emails, if that is true, then of course he's going to have to come clean with where he heard that. From who? Now keep in mind, at that time, everyone was talking about Hillary Clinton's deleted 33,000 emails. Everyone was trying to find Hillary's 33,000 deleted emails. And Papadopoulos says he thought that's what Mifsud was talking about. And it may well have been the reason that Mifsud brought it up. Maybe Mifsud didn't have any information. He was just hearing things and just wanted something to talk about and said that just because he's a blowhard and talks a lot. Who knows? We know he was never able to deliver on introducing Papadopoulos to any important Russian officials. That's what Papadopoulos wanted from Mifsud. He wanted Mifsud to give him some sort of contact so that Papadopoulos could set up a photo op. He just wanted to get a picture of Trump and Putin together. Just a quick handshake and a picture. Flash, boom, done. He wasn't trying to get a high-level discussion, a summit, or anything else. Just wanted a photo op with Putin. That's all he was asking for, and Mifsud could not even deliver on that. The best he could do is Ivan Timoviv, a think tanker who belongs to a group called the Vivaldi Group, who once a year has a big conference, and they invite Russian high-level politicians, including usually the president, attends, and they just discuss various issues. They have no influence really on government or involved in government. They're just a bunch of think tankers and academics, just like Mifsud. So let's go through some facts regarding Mifsud about what we know and some of the people around him, and the reason why I continue to be very suspicious of Mifsud and why I do believe that Papadopoulos is telling the truth, and in fact it was Mifsud who gave him that information. And in fact, I believe that Mifsud was working for some intelligence agencies, and that's why they've been keeping him underground. That's why they've been keeping him quiet, keeping him away. They don't want him testifying. But if you are Mr. Durham, Mr. A.G. Barr, you cannot do your investigation of Spygate until you talk to Mifsud. You cannot do it. You cannot untangle Operation Crossfire Hurricane until you talk to Mifsud and find out who he was talking to, who his contacts were, what intelligence agencies or governments or private intelligence firms he was dealing with. You've got to get it from him. You've got to get that out of Mifsud, or you got nothing. You don't have a Spygate investigation unless you get to the bottom of Mifsud. And someone's making awfully damn sure that no one can get to him. So my biggest question of curiosity right now would be, has Durham and Barr tracked down Mifsud? Now, the current president of Italy is someone who's pretty supportive of Trump. And many members of parliament as well in Italy supportive of Trump. So they would certainly be getting cooperation from the Italian government, which is why they may have moved him out of Italy. It's my guess. No Mifsud, you got nothing. You got to track down Mifsud, period. Let's talk about this Stephen Rowe character. Stephen Rowe was interviewed by the FBI when he came to the States with his wife, and this was the Mueller team, FBI agents working during the Mueller investigation. This occurred in October of 2017. Stephen Rowe was interviewed by FBI agents assigned to the Mueller investigation in October of 2017. Yet, the name Stephen Rowe does not even appear in the Mueller report. Why do you think that is? Why didn't Mueller say anything about the fact that they did interview, and according to Mr. Rowe, they were not very friendly about it? It was a very hardcore, hard drill on he and his wife at the airport. They weren't very friendly. They weren't very nice. They were pushing him pretty hard. Now, what has Stephen Rowe been saying the whole time? We've never heard anything different out of him. He's always been consistent at saying pretty much that Mifsud was definitely not a Russian agent and was more than likely a Western intelligence agent. Do you think that that is why Uncle Bob, the drive-by executioner, did not mention the Stephen Rowe interview in the Mueller report? Was because Rowe would have told them, nah, he's not a Russian agent. He's a Western intelligence asset. Someone needs to ask Uncle Bob, the executioner, when he comes in for those hearings, about his conversations, or the FBI's conversations on his behalf with Stephen Rowe. Here's another thing. Regarding the Hillary Clinton emails, clearly I think Mifsud was talking about the 33,000 deleted emails, and I think that's what everyone was talking about. Because it wasn't Hillary who was hacked. It was the DNC and Podesta that were hacked. That's not Hillary. If the Russians wanted to hack Hillary, they could have easily done it. She had a private server, and they probably did. We know the Chinese were living on her server. The Russians probably were as well. If the Russians really wanted to get Hillary, they would have got her private server. But they didn't. They got the DNC and Podesta. Very important to keep that in mind, because a lot of people want to muddy that water and make it sound like the Russians hacked Hillary's emails. They did not. They hacked the DNC emails, and they got Podesta through a phishing scheme. And if the Russians did get into Hillary's server, they definitely would not have released any of that to anyone, including WikiLeaks. So Hillary was not hacked. It was the DNC. And so when Mifsud is talking about emails on Hillary Clinton, he certainly wasn't talking about the idea that the Russians had gotten into Hillary's emails and had gotten all her emails. He was obviously referring to the 33,000 deleted ones. But if the Russians wanted to get into Hillary's emails, and they probably did, they're probably living on her server as well, I'm sure they would have, and they would never have disclosed that or disclosed those emails, because once you disclose the emails, you pretty much disclose the fact that you had violated her server or whatever. So that's the reason why they wouldn't have done that. So Stephen Rowe says Mifsud also, this is something else that's very curious. Stephen Rowe is saying that Mifsud was interviewed again, a second time, by Mueller in 2019. Now, this is the first I've heard of this. This is the first I've heard of this, but this was in that New York Times or New York Post story, or Washington Post story, is that Rowe is suggesting that Mifsud was interviewed a second time by Mueller sometime in 2019. That would be very recent history. Yet we have nothing about that in the Mueller report. Someone needs to ask him about that as well. The name Mifsud is mentioned in the Mueller report 103 times. 103 times. And in the Mueller report, they used the phrase that he has Russian connections. They don't say he's a Russian agent. That was Comey. In the Mueller report, they just say he has Russian connections. Well, he has a hell of a lot of other connections, too, that are not Russian. We know that Mifsud worked with Claire Smith. She was the head of the UK's Joint Intelligence Committee. We also know that she worked with Mifsud at Link University, where she gave a training program to the Italian security forces, along with Mifsud. And keep in mind, Claire Smith was the top-level recruiter for intelligence people in the UK. The top-level recruiter. And she's got a supposed Russian agent infiltrating her? It's hard to believe, isn't it? Have you ever heard of Andy Bigley? Andy Bigley, B-I-G-L-E-Y. He is a former FBI advisor, but since 2015, he has served as the privacy counsel to CrowdStrike. Guess what? He was also a visiting lecturer at Link campus in Rome. Andy Bigley, former FBI advisor. Since 2015, he's been serving as the privacy counsel to CrowdStrike and also a visiting researcher at Link campus in Rome. His connections: FBI, CrowdStrike, and Link campus. Claire Smith was UK's top recruiter for intelligence agents. She's a former member of the UK Joint Intel Committee. She gave training classes to high-ranking Italian military officials in Rome in 2012. The class was organized by Link campus in Rome in 2012, and Smith was photographed standing next to Mifsud and those Italian military officials who they just completed giving a training class to. Link campus claims that they cut ties to Mifsud after he was outed, but it appears that the place where Mifsud has been staying up until at least May of 2018 in Rome is owned by Link campus partners, one of whom we're told is Mr. Rowe. He was last seen in Rome in May of 2018. And as I said before, my guess is that since then, Mifsud's been giving a new name and a new identity and is probably traveling incognito. So you have to ask the question. Obviously, Barr and Durham have to be, they absolutely must interview Mifsud. Have they done so? If not, why not? Is he hiding from them? According to Rowe and Scarborough, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence testimony reveals that Perkins Coie was briefing the Clinton campaign on the dossier as the dossier information was being put together. This is a question I asked about 3 or 4 months ago. I said, you know, we really need to get some information, because if Hillary's paying for the dossier, then certainly she will want to be kept informed of what they were learning throughout the process. But you never hear, and Clinton gives the impression that she just hired a research firm and then she knew nothing else. But we now learn from this article by Rowe and Scarborough that that Perkins Coie, who actually is the one who actually hired Steele, was paying Steele on behalf of Hillary, was giving regular briefings to the Clinton campaign on the information they were getting from Steele that would later find its way into what we would call the dossier. And here's something else, just recent in the Federalist, an article by Margot Cleveland. And Margot Cleveland says that Barr is looking into the Mueller investigation to see what Mueller was looking at, and to see if the Mueller team buried any facts or failed to pursue any leads. So this is a question again that I had: is Barr, is he aware that Uncle Bob, the drive-by executioner, was part of the coup plot? Is he looking into anything there? And according to Margot Cleveland, yeah, Barr is looking into the Mueller investigation itself. He's looking at what Mueller was looking at, and probably a lot of things that he wasn't looking at, and also looking to see if the Mueller team buried any facts or failed to pursue any leaks. So you'll find lots and lots of that buried information. I just pointed out some of it. Someone needs to ask him these questions about Stephen Rowe when he's in there for these hearings. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.